Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a special meeting, Tuesday, May 6th, of the Stonington Planning and Zoning Commission. The meeting is supposed to come to order at 7 o'clock sharp. It's now 7:03, and the delay is due to the previous meeting running over slightly. I think we have all our regular members present this evening, so there'll be no appointment of alternates. Moves us to the minutes. What's your pleasure on minute number 1784 from February 26, 2025?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from meeting number 1784 from February 26, 2025 as submitted.
Second. Motion to approve. Second.
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you both. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Minutes number 1789, April 15th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from meeting 1789 from April 15, 2025 as submitted.
Second.
Motion approved by Ryan. Second.
Alyssa.
I'm sorry, her voice is so soft I didn't hear her. Seconded by Alyssa. Thank you both. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Minutes number 1790, April 23rd, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve meeting minutes for meeting number 1790 from April 23rd, 2025 as submitted.
Second.
Motion approved by Ryan, seconded by Alicia. Thank you both. Any discussion on the motion?
I was not there, so.
Okay, so you'll be abstaining. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Me.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Motion on minutes number 1791, April 30th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve meeting minutes for meeting number 1791 from April 30th, 2025 as submitted. Excuse me.
Motion approved by Ryan. Is there a second?
Okay. Second.
Second. Okay, seconded by Lynn. Any discussion?
That's the one I have to abstain from.
Oh, is it?
I was confused.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I was looking at the calendar.
That's okay.
So
You
I'm
also
sure-
abstained from the previous one for the record.
But,
You know.
but I was
That's-
at that meeting. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Not to worry.
Okay.
Any discussion on minutes number 1791? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone abstain?
I abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
Chair votes aye as well. Abstentions?
Aye.
Ryan and Lynn. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. This is the point in the meeting where public can make a comment on anything that's not in the agenda. So if you have a concern that you want to bring to the commission's attention or an item you just want to discuss, you're free to step forward and address the commission. We just ask that you state your name and address and keep your items brief as possible. We have a very long agenda this evening. Anyone wish to speak under this item? Hearing none, we'll move to correspondence. Clifton?
None.
No correspondence. Move to reports. Staff, update on POCD schedule and Department of Housing Technical Assistance Grant.
Yeah, I put in a quick memo for the commission. Let me turn to it, apologies. So at a previous meeting, the commission requested some general updates on the POCD process as we go. As you know, at the last meeting, we did the public interviews for the two citizen at-large members. So the next thing on the agenda is to vote and appoint those members. The other thing I wanted to update the commission on was the town of Stonington is applying for a technical assistance grant with the Department of Housing for our Housing Opportunities Plan. We discussed this at the POCD kickoff with SLR, consultant for the effort. The intention of, if we receive this grant funding, would be to modify our contract with SLR so they will produce both the POCD and a housing opportunities plan. And so I was just providing a general update on that process. We're looking to get that application to DOH here by the end of the month, and then it'll just fall into place with the rest of the POCD effort. So that schedule, as it is required to be updated, I'll let you know at that time. The other thing I provided an update on was the POCD survey. Held it open for a little over a month, about 5 or 6 weeks. We received 422 responses, which is 2.3% of the population. That's on the lower side, but definitely over the percentage requirement that we wanted for the effort. SLR's put together a draft community survey results plan, as well as its community profile and existing conditions report. That's currently being reviewed by me, and then I'll disseminate that once at the appropriate time. And then I provided an update for the POCD effort, because as we start moving into the summer months, the schedule is already planned to be very busy. So following the appointment of the citizen at-large members tonight, there's going to be 2 POCD kickoff meetings with the full steering committee. One of them is 6 p.m. on Thursday, May 15th at Stonington Human Services. The other is Thursday, May 29th at 6 p.m. at Stonington Human Services. And then immediately after that, starting on June 10th, we're going to do our first full big open house. Really had to run through this schedule because time and spaces in town fill up fast, so I had to work and schedule this ahead of time. But those first 2 steering committee kickoff meetings, we're going to go over the same kickoff that the commission's already received with SLR, and then we're going to talk about how the commission wants to go about doing the public engagement for the rest of the summer, and how we plan on going forward with development of the plan. So those 2 meetings are going to be very important, but and then that steering committee will then decide, how often they want to meet, what their schedule is going to be like moving forward. So that's the update I have.
Can I ask a quick question about the open house?
Yeah.
Sure.
4 o'clock is really a hard time. And I understand that it's hard to get spaces, but
It's going to be 4 to 8 p.m.
the steering committee should have some input on when that happens. What if the steering committee has to work? I mean, that might be a little too soon to plan. I know we want to get it done, and I understand that, but
Yeah,
people.
we had to make some changes, or I had to make some decisions based on the schedule, because we didn't get the steering committee off the ground quickly enough, and without sacrificing our schedule for the POCD effort. I'm still adhering to the original schedule as developed by SLR.
The meeting does go to 8 o'clock, so I mean.
It's
I
an
think that
open
gives
house, so it's gonna
everybody
be
an
a- it's gonna
opportunity.
be
to
one
So
of
it's
those-
not like a presentation, people just walk in and talk
Correct.
to
Yeah.
whoever's just sitting at
Yeah,
a table?
this one is going to be one of those open tables, kind of everybody can come and go at their
Okay, so it's
leisure.
not like
No.
when we did the zoning rewrite open house, it's not
Nope.
a public thing,
No,
just
it's
an
not a
open
formal,
house.
you have to sit down there.
Okay, you just
so
come and talk and express your opinions to
For the
whoever might
open
be
house, it's going to be a very informal.
Okay.
And then the first couple meetings with the steering committee, that's where the input, that committee's going to decide how they want to do the rest of the public engagement
Okay.
in the very structured format. This is just the
Alright.
first one to get
Okay.
off the ground, and then the steering committee, like you're saying, is going to be in charge of deciding when the next ones are, what their structure's going to look like, what are they going to do.
Because I think doing the public engagement, I know this isn't really part of it, but doing one public engagement in the summer to get the summer people will be really helpful.
It's going to be
And
the,
then
yeah.
do some other off summer, but I think it's critical to get some
There's an
summer.
opportunity to discuss that, though.
Yeah,
Our-
no, I know,
yeah,
I know, I'm
Our
just-
schedule
yeah.
is,
But I want to make sure the committee discusses that.
the full public engagement scope as developed in the
Will
project
be the
schedule
POCD,
is
the committee.
starting in June and ending in like September.
Clifton, I have a question about the housing opportunity. So is that a document that's part of the POCD, or is that totally separate and you're just hoping to use the same consultant?
So the town, in the past, when we developed our affordable housing plan back in 2021,
Yeah.
that was developed as a separate document.
Separate, okay.
The affordable housing plan as required and developed by the state is still overseen by the Planning and Zoning Commission. We do have a Housing Opportunities Commission itself that has that has been charged with the responsibility of developing the plan and bringing it to the Planning and Zoning Commission for eventual approval.
Okay.
So we're in the process, we have to update that plan, and it's since we're doing all this robust public engagement for the POCD, and one of the core components you're gonna talk about is housing, it made the most sense logically to apply for grant funding, so we don't have to go back to the Board of Finance and ask for additional funds to hire a consultant to write the plan. DOH, if we receive this grant, would fund 100% of the development of that plan. And if we could modify our contract with SLR, their public engagement could directly tie into writing this plan as well. So you get a 2-for-1 deal on the work that SLR is already doing. So a lot of other municipalities across the state and across the country have folded in their affordable housing plan into their POCD or their long-range planning documents. It's not a requirement, but I think in the interest of time and simplicity and having the conversation all at once with the community, this is the best option.
Which makes perfect sense, but in the end game, we will have 2 separate
Correct.
documents and 2 separate presentations to Planning and Zoning Commission to vote on separately.
Correct. So the design or the hope is that the Affordable Housing Plan, Housing Opportunities Plan is an approved annex of the POCD, but they wouldn't be voted on necessarily simultaneously. The hope is that they could be developed and voted on simultaneously, but they are 2 separate documents.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Clifton?
Quick question, Clifton, when will we know if we get the grant?
Application I hope to have in by the end of this month, and I should know probably July. And then we would work to get the funding, and so if we do any additional public engagement associated with a housing plan, that would be tacked on at the end of the regular POCD effort.
No further questions, Orion. We'll move to item B, appointment of POCD Steering Committee. Any nominations from the commission?
Is this for the steering committee or for the, oh, you mean for the citizens at large?
Citizen, yes.
So how do you want that to work? Do you want us to nominate people, or one person at a time?
Well, there's 2 vacancies, so I think we can entertain nominations from anyone who wants to make a nomination, and then the regular members will vote, and you can only vote for 2 people, and somebody's gonna have to keep a tally.
Okay.
So that the people that get 3 votes are the ones who win.
So each nomination needs a second as well, right? Is that right?
Well, we could nominate everybody who
You don't need
we
to-
You don't
interviewed,
need to
but you
second.
can only vote for 2.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I nominate Tim Murney.
Okay, I nominate David Rathman.
I nominate Lindsay.
Okay.
With the last name.
Is there a last name there that we can just
There's
make
only
it
one
official?
Lindsay.
Frank Fairchild.
Yes.
Are there any further nominations?
I would nominate did you already nominate Jennifer Lacker? No. I apologize, then I am nominate her.
And who was the second nomination, Ryan?
Jennifer Lacker.
Okay, so the 3 then that are nominees are Lindsay?
4.
4, okay, so why don't you read off the names of the nominees, at least that we have now?
So Tim Murney, Jen Lacker, Lindsay Pike Fairchild, and David Rathman are the 4 that you said.
All right, so if there are no further nominations, is there a motion to close nominations?
Make a motion to close the nominations for the citizens at large.
Motion by Ryan to close, is there a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so I guess we go down the line, regular members, and you can vote for 2.
So no discussion?
If you wish discussion, please, by all means.
I mean, usually when the selectmen do it, they discuss. So I'll talk about my 2, or I can talk about the other ones. I think that, I've worked with Tim on committees before. I think he's a new voice. He's not somebody he's very engaged in, he was involved in the housing, and I really like the idea of having new voices speaking up. We have a lot of the same people on commissions, and having young people or people who want to get engaged, I think is a good thing. So I think, and I've worked with Tim before. He's a good guy. He has good insights into housing. He's done a lot of really interesting things. He worked with me on the first affordable housing plan in town years ago. And Lindsay, I think, is, she's young and she's energetic and enthusiastic, and I think it's nice, like I said before, to have someone like that on the committee who's different.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion?
I'll just note for the folks that I nominated, David Rathbun, I think everybody knows the extensive experience he has with the town and on a number of various commissions, and I think he brings a wealth of knowledge and to the table for this POCD. And I think also combined with Jen Lacker, I really like the fact both of them want something that's actionable, so that we actually come up with a plan, and that to me, in my perception, is the thing I think we really want to focus on, or I hope we focus on the POCD, is something that is actionable, and those seem to be the two people who were most prioritized on that, so that was my reasoning.
From my perspective, I agree wholeheartedly. Anyone else? Okay, then is everybody comfortable moving to vote?
Yep.
Okay, so which end would we like to start at?
So we vote
Ladies
for
first.
two? How does this work?
Yep,
We vote
go
for
for
two?
two. I'm gonna take a tally and then I'll,
Tim and Lindsay.
yep.
David and Jennifer?
David and Jennifer?
David and Jennifer.
Tim and Lindsay?
All right, so the tally, David and Jen got 3, Lindsay and Tim got 2, so it'd be David
Okay, so
David and Jen.
the successful candidates are David Rathbun and Jennifer, and my thanks to all who stepped forward. You know, public service is a huge responsibility, and you know, I think we had a number of good candidates. I wished all of them could have participated. Hopefully there'll be an opportunity for some of the others down the road as positions open up on this commission. Okay, moving on to the next item, zoning enforcement and violations. Any questions of Clifton? If not, move on to administrative review. First item is Mystic Seaport Museum. Is there someone here for administrative review for tent installation at various locations throughout Mystic Seaport Museum to support events during summer months?
I'm here.
All right. Evening.
Good evening. I'm Barbara McCrell, and I work at the Mystic Seaport. I'm the facility director there. We have 2 applications in for tents that are for events. One of the applications is for 3 20 by 20 foot tents. We have been using these tents and obtaining a permit for using these tents for at least the last 10 years. I've been there for 2.5 years, and this is my 3rd time applying for these permits. The second application is for a tent that is 30 feet by 45 feet. And this tent was also approved last year and in place last year. If you visited the seaport, we had a submarine under it. This year, we're going to use it. Primarily, our tents are used for shade spaces for our guests to get out of the shade, since it seems to be getting hotter and hotter
Get
there
out of the
every
shade or
year.
get into the shade?
Or get into the
Yeah,
shade. Get into the shade, excuse me. But they're basically just places where our guests are allowed to take cover from the sun.
Good idea.
And, yes, and still be able to enjoy the seaport. The large tent will primarily actually be used, we're gonna put picnic tables under it and have a place for outdoor seating so people can bring their lunches and their food in and have a place where they can sit out and enjoy the space.
Okay. Any questions of the representative from the seaport? If not, what's the commissioner's pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this application as submitted with no stipulations.
Clifton, any comments? I should have meant no comments. Okay, so a motion to approve by Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you, Gary. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair abstains. Any opposition? Not, motion passes. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Take care.
Item 2, application 25-088 ZON, Ocean Community YMCA. So we have Sergio Sherenzia here this evening. This is for administrative review for the installation of a 200 square foot shed, property located at 1 Harry Austin Drive, Mystic. Evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission members. For the record, Sergio Terenzia with Terenzia and Associates, offices at 99 Mechanic Street, Pawcatuck, Connecticut. We're here tonight as mentioned, for a 200 square foot shed. It's considered a minor accessory building on the property. When you'll recall that we were here not too long ago, maybe it was a little while ago, but for to demo the existing storage and facilities building at the end of Harry Austin Drive. That actually came down today. Yep, has been demolished and is making way for our new camp building. However, we were remiss in that there was a tractor that was stored in that building, and now they need a place to store it. So we are coming back to you to get this hopefully administratively approved. Like I said, it's a minor accessory building. It's actually going to replace a dugout structure. The rest of the structures, if you recall, that were associated with the baseball field are all the press box, the dugouts, the fences, all are going to get taken down so that it can be used as a multi-purpose field. And this building will be situated where one of those dugouts has been recently demolished. It meets all the zoning setbacks. I have a photo generally of what it's going to look like, some variation of this, but for the most part, it's going to be the door on the end, which they need the width to get the tractor in and out, as well as the height. And I'm not sure about the doors and the windows and the other shingles and the things that, not the shingles, the sills on the window, if those are actually, but it'll be coming from Fleming's, and they're ready to ship it and bring it right to the site as soon as it's approved. So with me this evening tonight is Maureen Fitzgerald. She's the outgoing president of Ocean Community YMCA, and she's still making sure that these projects, even though she's slated to retire in about a month or two, that these projects are successful, and she keeps them moving through to the new administration. So that's about it. If you have any questions of her or myself, feel free to ask.
Questions from the commission?
Did you say, Sergio, where the shed was going?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so in relation, this is Harry Austin Drive. It dead ends at the what is now going to be the new camp building, just north of that, along the property line. There's a building, and we're keeping it the minimum setback it needs to be, and replacing the structure that was there. That's where that dugout was. We're just going to place the shed right where it was.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? Any comments, Clifton? What's the commission's pleasure on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application of Ocean Community YMCA.
Motion to approve, no stipulations?
No stipulations.
No stipulations. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Motion made by Ryan, seconded by Gary. Thank you both. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair abstains, motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 3, application 25-089 ZON A&G, I hope I'm not mauling this, Vecha. On-Site Engineering, Inc. is the representative. Administrative review for the removal of lady slipper shells and installation of sand on existing beach area, property located at 14 Oak Street. Evening, sir.
Good evening, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're here tonight to, myself and the applicants, Annette and Gary Vaca, to request removal of lady slippers along their beach and replace the lady slippers with beach sand. We've been here before, I think 3 or 4 years ago, to request this, and it was approved. This activity will take place between the approximate elevation 3 and 5, which is above the jurisdictional line for Connecticut jurisdictional line. The removal will be done by small equipment in combination of hand tools. We are going to access the site from at the end of Oak Street. There's a gravel road that terminates, and we're going to go off of that. with our equipment and with our trucks. Included in the packet, I've included some correspondence with Connecticut Deep, saying that as long as we are above the jurisdiction line, they will not require a permit from them. And I've also included some photos in that to show you how invasive they are.
What's the
Part of-
elevation of the coastal jurisdiction line there? Is it 2.5?
It's about 2.
2.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that being said, I would request, if we could, ask for approval for up to 4 or 5 years, so we can continue to do this yearly rather than come back every 3 or 4 years, because the shells build up quite a bit over time, so it'd be almost like a maintenance type thing every year for us.
Understood. That it?
Yes.
Board have any questions of the representative? Or is it Vega? Is that how you pronounce it?
Vaca.
Vaca, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Got it wrong twice.
I have a question. So the application says, I just want to quote it correctly. It says that the property is located at 14 Oak Street, which you mentioned, and then the adjacent properties. So are these all privately owned? Is it, the adjacent properties I'm just not understanding, so can you just further elaborate on that?
You mean clarify the definition of the site?
Yeah,
Okay.
So I believe the Vacas own quite a bit, just, I think, I don't have the overall site plan in front of me. But they continue down the beach, their properties, and then it becomes different ownerships.
so that's my concern. We just want to make sure that you're here representing the Vacas and what they own and not any of the other properties. And I'm just not gathering that from the application. And I could just be, I'm not familiar, but,
There is a map that accompanies the application.
okay, but
Yeah, I
do
guess,
the Vacas own all that?
yeah, to Lynn's question, do the Vacas own all of the area in which you're proposing to remove these? They own all of that?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Lynn?
I guess it does. I would have
Okay.
preferred that the addresses were on the application.
Yeah, that would have made it clearer, I agree.
I just want to
They
make
might not
that,
have addresses, right, if they're just making
Well, I put the,
is that what it is? They don't have addresses?
a
a lot of them are.
I do think they have the map and block
Yeah,
numbers.
I see the
Okay.
map
The
and
map
block.
and block
Right.
numbers are
Yeah.
very specific to
But do they just not have?
specific
street
parcels,
addresses?
so
Because there's no building.
that's a
Yeah, no, I know that,
legal,
but
a legal definition.
Okay, great, thank you. I just,
Any other questions? Clifton, any comments?
I have one question, Clifton, because you did make a mention that you wanted to see if you could have this approved for multiple years, but I don't see that in the application. I don't think we can do that, so I just wanted to make sure.
Can't do that, it
Yeah.
just need to be an application every year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mentioned it in my cover letter, I just didn't.
Yeah, I don't think we can.
So it'd be doing the same process once every year you want to do it.
If there are no further questions, what's the commission's pleasure on item 3?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application for AG Vaca as submitted, no stipulations.
Motion approved by Ryan, thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary, thank you, Gary. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair abstains, motion passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, item 4, application 25090, ZON, Hero Holdings LLC. Is there someone here to represent the applicant?
Excuse me.
Evening, sir.
Evening. I'm Clay Burkhalter with Hero Holdings. And this application is to, last year we had approval from this board and a permit for a shade tent for dog trainers and dogs that was located in a yard on the west side of the property. The dog yards have now moved to the east side of the property, and so we're requesting that the zoning that we had approved last year be modified to have the tent on the east side of the property. And then where the dogs used to be on the west side will now become a vegetable garden, and we're requesting a 10 by 16 storage and garden shed next to that fenced-in area.
Is that the presentation?
That's it?
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the applicant? Clifton, any comments?
None.
If there, I'm sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to, this is a very long staff report. I'm trying to find the page that you have a graphic.
It's on page 49, I think.
Thank you. I'm flipping through as quickly as I can.
Yeah, it is a long one. It's 110 pages
Yeah,
this
so
time.
sorry, I'm
Yeah,
having to quickly get there. So I just wondered, what's the view from the street for both of these?
The new location for the tent is behind, the setback is probably 150 feet from the road. And on the east side of the yards, which are surrounded by 6-foot fences, on the east side of the property is marshland.
Okay.
And then on the west side, where we'd like to put the 10 by 16 storage shed, I think the setbacks were on the, but it's, I think, about 200 feet back from Route 1. And then the rest of the surrounding property is marshland, Pafford Marsh.
You show the tent on the plan? I don't see
Yeah,
the tent. I see
the blue box, used to be the red box, and now it's over on the right-hand side. I have 2 site plans there, so it may be the second page.
You see the red box?
It's on page 51, the blue one.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
Got it?
There it is,
It's
yeah.
over here.
Does that address your question?
Yes, it does, and it's beyond that.
Dave, any further questions?
Nope.
And no one else has any other questions? Clifton, no comments? What's the commission's pleasure on the application of Hero Holdings?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the application of Hero Holdings as submitted with no stipulations.
Motion by Ryan, thank you, Ryan, no stipulations. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary, thank you, Gary. Any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Anyone opposed? Chair abstains. Motion passes.
Great,
Thank you, sir. Last administrative review item, application number 25-096 ZON Ravy LLC. Evening, sir. Just state your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Kamal Kalkan. I'm representing 21 East Main Street, Mystic, Connecticut. This application is proposing improvements to the existing commercial bakery at 21 East Main Street, which includes the construction of a minor accessory shed and the validation of outdoor seasonal seating. These updates support increased operational demands during peak tourism months and are intended to enhance efficiency, comply with Town of Stonington's rules and standards, and maintain the property's functional and aesthetic integrity. I can answer any questions if needed.
Any questions of the applicant? Clifton, any comments?
I wrote up a bit of a report on this one.
Right, I see that.
The only reason I did that was because there are 3 things for the commission to consider. The first is a change of use from a bakery, which I put in parentheses, retail. When this site was approved in 2009, it was approved for a retail use, which means no seating inside. The applicant, as part of this application, is requesting to change the use from a retail space to a retail restaurant, which allows 8 seats inside. I provided a parking calculation showing from what was approved to what's required now that there's no change. So the applicant meets the parking requirement from the change of use, which would be the only thing of consideration. They wrote up the seasonal outdoor dining, and I just highlighted that the state of Connecticut has allowed outdoor dining as a response to the pandemic, as an allowed permissible use. That means it can go anywhere outside of the site, and it can be located even on parking spaces. That's a state requirement. The only thing that I highlighted is that as of July 1st, 2024, property owners that had outdoor seating had to come and just receive the compulsory approval from the commission. So the applicant is doing that tonight, just validating, as you said, that outdoor seating. And then the last part is the construction of a 92 square foot storage shed, which is also on the site plan. So 3 things, that's why the report's large.
And there are 4 stipulations.
And I did request 4
Yeah,
stipulations.
That's fine, I understand the stipulations, thank you.
And what's the, in your report, that there's a complaint? kind
So
of
the
on
reason
property?
why, the reason why the applicant's before us is in response to a complaint that came to the zoning enforcement officer. We highlighted that the outdoor seating didn't get the approval it was necessary from the commission, and then the shed was erected without getting this commission's approval. So that's the source of the complaint. So by putting in this application, it's meeting the needs to satisfy that complaint, and there is a violation, which this commission has seen multiple times.
Why didn't you?
I wasn't aware that it was required. My contractor, since it's a floating shed, he told me that I didn't require a permit, which is my lack of experience. I should have approached the board either way to make sure that I was in compliance, but I've only recently taken control of the bakery, so I'm learning as I go, and this was one of the things that I definitely needed to learn today.
Thank you.
Does this bakery, is this the bakery that puts the signs out, the little
A-frame?
A-frame signs?
Yeah, yeah.
Which are not allowed either? Did anybody ever tell you that?
No, I see them around town.
We've discussed that separately as a zoning action. The reason why I put there's a stipulation in there that this doesn't include any change to a signage package. So if there was a violation, they would go through the normal process for the signage.
So I'm just bringing up here the number of violations and complaints on this.
Is that a
So,
current violation?
something-
It's not a current one, no.
Current, but it has
Is that
been
the-
in the past.
It was, but it's resolved, so that it can't be under the commission's purview.
I think that was addressed in like around 2013 to 2015 with my parents.
It is wise, just
Yeah.
from the standpoint of, owning a business and wanting to stay in compliance, asking for a blessing as opposed to forgiveness. So, in the future, as you come up with different ideas, whether it involves lighting, signing, wiring, modifications to the structures, modifications to the layout, these items are governed largely by zoning, and you're doing the right thing by what you did here. So you know the drill now, and if you follow this rigorously, you're going to be much more successful than if you do it and then have to ask for forgiveness. It's not the way to go. So you're here this evening in good standing, so thank you. Commissioner, have any other questions of the applicant? If not, what's the pleasure of the commission on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this application with the following 4 stipulations. Number 1, the applicant shall receive a building permit for the construction of a new ADA compliant parking space. Number 2, any alterations to the outdoor dining area shall be subject to receipt of a new zoning permit per the requirements of ZR 6.2 and ZR 6.3.11 or as amended. Number 3, there are no alterations to the multi-tenant signage program approved under this application. And number 4, final plans shall be reviewed to the satisfaction of the town planner and zoning enforcement officer.
Okay, a motion with 4 stipulations as set forth in Clifton's memo of review by Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you, Gary. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, so I'd just like to understand, so this is a restaurant without liquor?
Correct, it's a retail restaurant, so it's just the
Yeah, no
bakery, coffee shop business.
Okay, and the outdoor seating,
Correct.
is already there. and then they're putting in 8 new.
Correct. They
And then excuse me, I'm sorry, the outdoor seating has only been permitted to when?
So the outdoor seating was installed during COVID,
Right.
which was allowed with the state statute. When the commission passed its resolution in June of 2023, they said that any outdoor seating that was established during COVID under the state's legislation just had to come back and receive the formal approval of this commission to continue. So basically, it's just a minor site plan update to show us on a plan where it is. So this was built during COVID. The applicant's just coming back to receive that rubber stamp as the commission required.
Okay, because my recall, which is faulty at times, when we had a discussion about outdoor seating that was granted during COVID, we extended it, but not forever. There was a time
The state
limitation.
statute requires you to extend it forever.
Oh, the state got involved.
So
Yeah.
what we said is that that's fine, but the commission requested that they just receive the formal rubber stamp of approval, so now you know where it is on a site plan. So every outdoor vendor in town should have done this. And sometimes we see them as they come up with, applicants, changes of ownership, things like that. So this is just,
Did this
so he is doing that now.
now, but he didn't last
Well,
year.
I think you just took it over, if I understood correctly,
Yeah.
so.
So another thing, okay.
Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of this application?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Chair abstains, motion passes. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to old business, application PZ 251 4BR, Mystic Apartments LLC, D. Latazori, bond release reduction application for work performed under application PZ 2204 SPA, properties are located on Perkins Farm Drive. Which application is this?
So these are, the next two applications for two different bonds
Yeah.
for the Hartford Healthcare Perkins Farm apartment unit complex site. Mr. Latazori couldn't attend tonight, so the only thing that I communicated with him on, or him and the town engineer on both, he is amenable to the changes suggested by the town engineer in his comments.
So what are the changes?
The first one that you're speaking about now is a reduction of a partial release of a bond, reducing from $84,205 down to $20,000, which the $20,000 is the suggestion of the town engineer. And Mr. Latazori said he is amenable to that.
One of these applications, and I believe it's this one, is we stipulated that the stone walls along the frontage road had to be rebuilt completely, and only a portion of them has been done.
The town engineer has identified that.
Yes, okay, fine. As long as that's identified
And
as
he's comfortable
being
with
not completed.
Yeah.
Along with the reduction.
Correct.
So how much more of the wall needs to be
A lot.
okay, $20,000 does not cover a wall, for a long wall.
No, I know that from personal experience.
Right, so I think we've had bond reduction requests before on this development, and we have denied them because of work that was not done along the whole front area. So, I just want to point that out.
But can we hold them to that under a soil and erosion control bond? Like building a stone wall isn't really,
Yeah, it's not an item, it's not an item on the
Specific.
soil and
it's
erosion
not
control
soil and
bond,
erosion control, is it?
but,
Excuse
me.
I don't believe we have a site bond, so.
We don't.
So this bond only relates to things that relate
This
to
is
soil and erosion
correct.
control?
Yep.
So we can't say you didn't build a wall?
But it was identified in the site walk with the town engineer.
So what does that mean?
it means they pointed it out and say you have to go fix this, but it's not part of this application.
So it's like a violation, a notice of violation? Is there any recourse on?
It would,
on the-
if it never got approved or built to the standards of the approved application, it would fall into a notice of violation, that procedure.
As long as we're protected and, you know, before the application is closed out, it was a condition of approval.
Yeah, that's
They did a nice job on the portions that
there's
they
avenues of
rebuilt.
recourse that are unassociated with the bond release.
There is? Because I
It would be a
almost
violation
feel like,
of the site.
okay, and what,
Same process as the zoning enforcement officer does for every violation.
right,
This is a pretty responsible applicant. I
oh,
think,
yeah, he is.
you know, I think we can definitely, but as long as it's identified, I guess that's the
the key,
point, that
yeah.
it's still out there as an uncompleted item. Because it was, you know, the site is not robustly landscaped, and the stone walls are a prominent feature from the street. And the commission requested that they be rebuilt along the entire frontage of that property. And it's only about, not even half done, so. There's no reason where it's not done, that it's not done. That's why, you know, you can do it now, so. Maybe just a note to Latazori to let him know that the commission is watching. With that said, any other questions on this item? If not, what's the commission's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this bond reduction to the amount of $20,000 as submitted with no stipulations.
Motion to approve, no stipulations by Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you, Gary. Any discussion? Do we want to put in there a condition that the applicant, I guess you can't because it's not on the sediment and erosion control bond, so forget that.
I'll just I have a note to
Yeah.
talk to him separately.
Note on the side. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair abstains. Motion passes. Next item, PZ 2515, BR Mystic Apartments LLC, D. Latazori, bond release reduction, application for work performed under application PZ 1810 SPA and GPP, properties located at 50 Perkins Drive, Mystic.
Same principle, this was a full release of the $69,305 bond.
Okay.
And the town engineer is content with that.
Erosion and sedimentation again.
Any questions of Clifton or comments? If not, what's the commission's pleasure on this application for bond release?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this bond release for the full amount of the release with no stipulations.
Motion approved with no stipulations. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you, Gary. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Chair abstains, motion passes. Next item is application PZ 25165, PA General Dynamics
That's-
Electric Boat.
That's
No.
next meeting.
No, next meeting, I'm sorry. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm on a roll here. Okay, we'll move next into public hearings. And for these public hearings, all the regular members will be seated. Our format for these public hearings is the applicant will make a presentation, board will ask questions, staff will make a report. Anyone who wishes to speak should sign up in the back of the room, either for, against, or just make a statement on the application. We'll hear from those folks. The applicant will have a chance for rebuttal, and we'll go back and forth until everyone has said their piece. If the public hearing is concluded this evening, the board will vote immediately thereafter. First item for consideration, Lynn, would you just mind reading the agenda item, please? Right here?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh,
First public hearing.
yeah, thank you.
You bet.
The SP Jones Family, Inc., this is PZ 2517 SUP. the special use permit application for retail restaurant and liquor sales for an on-premise consumption. Property is located at 15 Home Street, Mystic, NBL 174-1-7. Property is located in a DB5 zone. Thank you, Chuck.
Someone here to represent the applicant, thank you very much. Lynn, why don't you just hold on to that, because we've got a few others.
Good
Evening, sir.
Thank you for making time tonight. My name is Dan Miser. I'm here to represent Squidhound LLC. Squidhound LLC is part of the 85th Day Food Community. We're a Mystic-based restaurant group. We own and operate Oyster Club, Engine Room, Port of Call, and Herrings down in Noank. For tonight's application, we are taking over the little oyster shack across the street from us. So we've been working with the folks down at Mystic Oysters for the last 15 years, buying their product. They've been operating a small little oyster shack seasonal restaurant across the street from Engine Room for the past 3 years. They reached out to us this spring, and they don't really have any interest in being in the restaurant business anymore, and asked us to take it over. So we are doing that. We have absolutely zero changes planned to the space in terms of its layout, in terms of its function, hours of operation, even a lot of the same menu items on there are going to be the same. The reason we're here tonight is we would like to apply for an on-premise state of Connecticut liquor permit. So we have the ability to sell a glass of wine or a beer or an RTD with a lobster roll that goes out the door. That's really the only change to their business and why we're here tonight.
Any questions to the applicant?
Would you say RTD, what was that?
Ready to drink. Those like a Fisher's Island lemonade or a White Claw canned beverage.
Any other questions to the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to open this public hearing for this application.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. No
That
worries.
would help.
Second motion.
Motion to open has been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And could you make a motion that we incorporate the testimony that was received in the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to incorporate the testimony of Mr. Miser.
Sorry, Mr. Miser.
That was given before
I
we
jumped
opened up
the
the
gun,
public
my
hearing.
No, I
No,
jumped
no
the
worries,
gun.
it's all right. So I made the motion to incorporate his testimony that he gave before the public hearing was formally opened.
Motion made to incorporate the testimony. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're right back where we were. Any further questions of this applicant?
Yeah, so this, you have no indoor seating, is that correct?
Correct.
It's just purely takeout?
Well, no, it's not purely takeout, it's window service, so there are 8 patio seats there. So people can eat on site, just not inside.
Okay, and what do you think the majority of your business is from? Eating on site or takeout?
I'm not really sure, but from talking to the folks that ran it for the last 3 years, people love to eat there. I mean, you're looking at the water right there at across the street from Engine Room there. You've got beautiful docks and waterfront, so people do eat there, correct.
The reason I'm asking this question is basically, there's 8 seats, it's a very busy restaurant. And
Hopefully.
And I think allowing a liquor license where, it's ready to go and people are taking their food and walking around, I'm just not sure that that's beneficial for the community. So.
We did have the same question, you'd be interested in your answer to that, but we did have the same question on Nana's, which is very small, and only the same number of seats, and I don't believe that's presented any problems whatsoever along the lines of our fears that we expressed at the same time, and I joined you
Right.
at that time. So I think the physical test has proved that fear is probably not one that will be realized, but I'd be interested in your comment.
Yeah, I mean, part of our responsibility, again, this would not be our first liquor permit. We've been owning and operating in Mystic for 15 years, and I like to think we have a pretty good reputation. Part of the responsibility of a permittee is to ensure that, there's safe service and controlled service of alcohol. So assuming that, we get sign off from the town of Stonington, tonight, and moving forward, we still have to present to the state of Connecticut DCP and go through that process. And one of the things that Liquor Control will do is when they come down, they will work with us to designate, exactly what our patio is and exactly what area we're allowed to have consumption of alcohol take place in. And that's our responsibility to not only monitor that, but to enforce it. One of the other things that is true and was codified in the Connecticut statute, and Clifton and I have been talking about this for the last few weeks, is during COVID, there were a few executive orders in the early days to permit to-go alcohol sales. And then 2 years ago, that was codified into the Connecticut state statute. So any restaurant in the state of Connecticut has the ability to sell alcohol to go. That doesn't mean that people have the right to drink open containers in the public and walk around the street. But in terms of selling, a lobster roll and a six-pack of beer to someone to take out to their boat or to bring home, that right already exists.
And you haven't had any problems with this in any other establishment
not.
where?
No, I mean, we sell to go in all of our establishments currently, and you'd be actually surprised how unpopular it is. Most people still prefer to go to a package store just because, they're price driven and restaurant prices are higher. But we certainly do
As a
offer.
convenience
It's a convenience thing, exactly.
Does that answer your question, Lynn?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Clifton?
I had no comment.
Anyone from the audience wish to speak on this application, either for or against? Do we have the,
Nobody signed up.
nobody signed up? Your lucky day.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions of the applicant, are we ready to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close this public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary, all in favor?
Aye.
So, no, I'd like to discuss it. So I just want to make sure my understanding is correct, and that is that we cannot deny this based on what the applicant has said in the Connecticut statute. Is that
You
correct?
can't regulate something that's regulated by statute, correct?
Okay, so this is just a rubber stamp. Basically, that's what we're being.
The commission has the authority to regulate restaurants with liquor sales, as is in the zoning regulations, but what Mr. Miser is describing and the process that he has to go through to get those permits through the state, the commission can't regulate.
Does that address your question?
So it's a rubber stamp, is that what you're saying?
I don't think it is, I think he's asking
No,
for
every-
site
Okay.
location approval.
Every restaurant in Stonington has to come to a special use, receive a
Yeah.
special use permit to sell liquor in Stonington. So that is what you're discussing. Can this restaurant sell liquor?
Okay.
All of the processes that he has to follow, should you approve that through the state, are not for the
Thank you,
conversation.
that's what I thought I understood from the explanation given by the applicant was that there's nothing this commission can do. So this is what I'd like to say. Nana's is a completely different location. There is no place to walk around where Nana's is. This is right downtown in Mystic along the river, and there's really, it's right on the sidewalk and the main thoroughfare for walking, right? To get to the drawbridge, to get across the river, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think that that's unique to this location, even versus locations that you happen to have on the other side of the river. And so I do think that we need to take that into consideration. When we review this application, I don't think it's just, well, we did this for Nana, so it's okay, or, yes, there are further steps to be taken. I think we can kind of.
The only point I was making with the similarity between Nana's was, I remember you were concerned about the size of it. It was the exact same thing. You were concerned about the size of it. That was your objection. And that was your objection when you talked about this. It was small. And that's the only reason I brought it up. We approved it. It wasn't a problem. And I had the same concern at the time.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to echo my thoughts in addition to yours.
Okay, thank you.
So if there are no other comments, are we ready to close public hearing?
Yes.
What do you do if you see someone walking off the site with the beer that you sold them?
They can do it.
They can do it. I mean, as long as it's not an open container.
If it is an open container, I mean, if they.
We do the same thing that we do at all of our spots, which we go out and we're responsible to either bring them back or bring the beer back. You know, one of the two's got to come back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For sure. Any other questions? We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. What's the commission's pleasure? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Public hearing is closed. What's the commission's pleasure on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this application. Can I combine the waivers requested in special use permit? So I make a motion to approve the waivers that were requested by the applicant and also the special use permit with no stipulations recommended.
Motion to approve by Ryan. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you both. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Opposed.
So is that 3-1? 3-1? Did you vote?
Yeah, voted yes.
Okay. So the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
Thank you.
Second public hearing. Lynn, would you read the second public hearing for
Thank
Sea Research Foundation?
I think we have to reopen it, right? So I'll make a motion to reopen.
Yes.
We're reopening PZ 2512 RAC Research Foundation, Inc., requesting a zoning text amendment application for the creation of a Marine Research and Education District, MRED, floating zone.
Okay, so we need a motion to reopen.
April 1st.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reopen this public hearing for the Sea Research Foundation.
Motion to reopen. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you both. Any questions on the motion? Discussion?
Excuse me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, again tonight, my name is Bill Sweeney. I'm a land use attorney and a partner at the law firm of Tobin Carberry in New London, Connecticut. I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you again. Joining me again this evening is Suzette Tybus. We have Chuck Sneddon, Keith Sorensen, and Corey Gers, all from Mystic Aquarium, who are here supporting the application. At the last hearing I was here at the beginning of April, I went through our application and went literally line by line through the actual proposed new zoning text amendment to add the MRED, or the Marine Research and Education District floating zone, to the zoning regulations. And as you recall, this regulation is really targeted for Mystic Aquarium and for the properties adjacent to Mystic Aquarium to create a flexible zoning district that would allow the aquarium to have some certainty. The aquarium has long been a non-conforming use here in the town of Stonington. To allow it to have some certainty and allow it to plan for the future. As was described at the last meeting by Ms. Tybus, the aquarium is in the midst of a strategic planning initiative, which will be moving into an actual master plan initiative later this year. And we hope to come before this commission sometime next year with a master plan, really charting the future of Mystic Aquarium and how it fits into this community. In the course of our discussions, I did share with you that as this is a zoning text amendment, you sit in your legislative capacity. Your choices effectively are to approve the application and the text as proposed, to deny the application, or to modify it. And I think we had a really robust and I think fruitful discussion at the early April hearing on this matter. I collected a lot of comments from the commission. And I also know at least two commissioners were able to talk with Clifton after the hearing, and Clifton was able to, through Clifton, was able to provide some additional comments. So I really want to thank everyone who's contributed to that. At the request of the commission, what I've done is prepared what I call a possible modifications proposal, which was in your package. I did go through all the comments, including the ones from the individual commissioners. I adopted some of them, I rejected some of them, and I made some compromises on some as well. So just want to go through it with you. This is a red line document, so the things that are struck out or the things that are underlined are so the changes from the original proposal. I think one comment, if you can follow along with me, I'll just try to go through them quickly. In the initial opening paragraphs of the regulation, this is section 2.46, and then in the general section, 10.6.2, there was, I think, one commissioner had a comment about sort of the vague nature of tourism activities, and so I've removed that concept from that language from the regulation, and basically just pointing out that the research and educational uses related to marine sciences at the aquarium do support tourism, and you had some testimony at the last hearing about what a major tourism draw the aquarium is and why that's important for the community from an economic development standpoint, and also to support all the other businesses that feed off of the aquarium as well. So I've made some very minor changes. There was some comments about sort of the aspirational language that's included in some of these introductory paragraphs and whether or not the regulation should be changed to be more mechanical in its nature and less aspirational. I chose to keep the language in that we had proposed because particularly for master plan zones, I think some of that aspirational language helps people, not the people who may be on the commission today, but people who may be on the commission 5 years now or 10 years from now to understand why the regulation came about and what was the underlying purpose. But again, if there is some wordsmithing that the commission would like to do beyond what I've proposed, and it doesn't change the actual nature of the regulation, I don't have any objection to that. If you go on to page 3 of the document, there was some discussion about specific design standards. This would be section 10.6.7. This sets forth minimum area and bulk requirements. We still believe it's important to have flexibility, so these requirements are different than those for the TC80 or the M1 districts, which are the underlying districts that are eligible for the floating zone. But there was some comments about the side yard. We did increase the side yard from 15 to 20 feet. And I think most importantly, I think a number of commissioners commented about the maximum building height. As I indicated last time, the TC80, where the aquarium is allowed now, is a 50-foot height limit, but you're able to go up to 65 feet to accommodate architectural features and roof lines. It was requested that we take a look at that and see if we'd be willing to give that up, basically, something that we have now that we would give up in the master plan process. And we agreed, we have no intention of going with anything that high. So that would actually be struck from the master plan, and so you couldn't go any higher than 50 feet, even though the existing zoning allows you to. We've made some changes to the buffer section in 10.6.7. This is subsection B. There was some dislike of the term performance buffers, so we removed that. We also made it clear that buffers could also be screening as well, so it may not just be vegetative planting, it could be a berm, it could be fencing, it could be a wall. It allows for creativity if the commission, and it empowers the commission to require these types of things. We also had some criticism about allowing buffering on adjacent properties. That section has been struck from the proposal as well. If we go to the next page, page 4, under parking, we've made some clarifying changes at the request of several commissioners, making sure that separate parking facilities on different parcels could be identified for shared use, but they need to be within the floating zone district in the overall MRED district. And then there was a concern also, and I think this is something that you're tackling in your overall regulations as well, is off-site parking facilities for a use. So if, for instance, the aquarium had a parking lot on Maritime Drive or across the street, when it was off-site, that it has to be under common ownership, or it otherwise has to be secured by a legally binding instrument, a lease or something that's recorded on the Stonington land records. And I think that addresses the concern that sort of the willy-nilly nature of people saying, well, I've got this many parking spaces here, I have this many parking spaces here, I don't have any leases for it, and things change over time, but this makes a record in the land records. I have control over the spots that I'm counting for the use. We also did a little wordsmithing in section 2 under parking, just to make sure that the commission reserves some discretion in the actual reviewing of the parking assessment. And that actually reflects what the regulations for parking assessment in 13.27 allow right now, but we just wanted to make clear on that as well. One of the issues I know that the chairman had at the last meeting, we also added a lighting and utilities section. And again, this will be part of the master plan, not an actual site plan, but as part of an approved master plan, you need to provide provisions for utility service and lighting, at least on a conceptualized basis. All utility interconnections have to be underground, and most importantly, sufficient capacity has to be demonstrated. So if you're showing additions or growth of the aquarium complex, you got to make sure you have sufficient water, sufficient sewer, sufficient utilities to support that. The infrastructure has to be there. We added a line about sustainable energy designs need to be encouraged. And then we also, at the request of a commissioner, although your regulations are already pretty clear on this, we just wanted to belt and suspender it, that all lighting has to be full cutoff, it has to be dark sky compliant, and again, it should be selected to be compatible with the aquarium or its zoological exhibits. Under permitted and prohibited uses, we had a variety of comments on this, some of this conflicted, so we needed to work through these. But you'll see that under primary uses, we've removed tourism-related uses, including restaurants and retail stores, as a primary use. So that's not a use that can stand alone within the zone. Instead, what we did is we took those uses and we put them into the accessory use category. I know there was some, I know one commissioner had suggested putting a cap on the number of those types of tourism-related uses or putting it as a percentage. What I thought might be more effective, because we really don't know yet how that's all going to work out, I think would better is to make them accessory uses. So that is, they can't be standalone. They have to be subordinate, accessory, and customarily incidental to the primary uses. So this would allow for a restaurant within the aquarium facilities. It might allow for a retail store or two, but they're not standalone stores. They're part of the overall aquariums complex. And I think that really, I think in my mind at least, addresses the concern that somebody uses this regulation as sort of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Although, quite frankly, the underlying zone is already TC 80, which allows restaurants and retail stores. We clarified that solar energy collection systems could be roof-mounted or ground-mounted. There was a request for us to look at sustainable designs. We want to make sure that we can do some solar if that makes sense on the site as well. And then under section B, 10.6.8, there was the prohibited uses. There were some comments about just removing the prohibited uses altogether. We certainly thought about that. But we also had some requests to look at that and to change it slightly. So I think it could go either way, but we left the prohibited uses in. And one particular one we wanted to list was hotels. There was one commissioner was very concerned about the idea that somehow a hotel would be built into with the aquarium. That's certainly not our plan. That's not something that we're trying to do. And so we've added that in subsection 3 of that, just to clarify that that's not a use that can be part of the aquarium complex. We've reviewed that internally as well, and had support with that internally. I think, there was always some concerns about the aquarium becoming more like an amusement park, and that prohibition is still in here as well. So again, these are sort of modest changes. They're trying to be responsive to the comments that we heard last time, but also the comments that we got from individual commissioners after the meeting. Remember tonight, this is a text amendment. It's not a particular plan. It's not even a particular project. It's really just the first step in creating a workable zoning designation, similar to what the Mystic Seaport has, quite frankly, for the aquarium. If this was adopted in some form, and we would urge you to adopt it with the modifications proposed or other modifications or tweaks that you find acceptable, if it was, then we would go through our internal process over the better part of the next year, and we would be back here sometime in 2026 to begin a discussion with you about a master plan using this regulation. So this sets the stage, it puts the tool in the toolbox. Come back next year to discuss the master plan, which is a zone change in which you will still sit in legislative discretion over, and then we can negotiate that and discuss that at that time. So again, I want to thank you for your time and attention. I'm available if you have any questions or thoughts or concerns. I also know, I'm not sure exactly who's seated for this hearing. I don't know.
Regular members.
I don't know if, okay, I just want to make sure make sure it's on the record that whoever wasn't here, great. So thank you again for your time.
Couple questions. Let's see, under leases for parking areas, we've had extensive discussion on this. Is there a term of a lease that's tantamount to fee? Is it, in other words, is it 25 years, 50 years? At what point is a lease tantamount to fee?
Typically, when I'm doing leases that are tantamount to fee, I do them as 99-year leases.
99.
Yeah.
Can a 50-year lease be tantamount to fee?
I mean, I've seen them in deals, but my suggestion would be is if somebody was proposing a lease, that you would tie their approval to that lease. And if that lease expires or is terminated, or, usually leases have financial consideration involved with them. And if that financial consideration is not paid, you can terminate the lease. If that happens, that should be a violation of the underlying approval. And then you would be able to use the enforcement authority of the town to go after you and say, hey, listen, you've got to address this. If you're not going to lease these spaces here, you've got to lease them there. And that's how most towns do it.
So there isn't a period for it, it runs coterminous with the use?
Yeah, and I would say that, you would want anytime somebody proposes
So could that be
that.
added, could that language be added?
Of course.
Or a lease to run coterminous with the use?
Yeah, or, in the event of a lease agreement, if a lease agreement is terminated, the use, that is a violation of the approved master plan.
But a violation, we don't have a lot of teeth behind it. We don't have a lot of teeth when somebody violates something, one of our.
This would give you more teeth than you already have.
Right, but
What he's-
saying that it has to be, a 99-year lease is much more substantial.
Yeah, I would prefer that,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, most people aren't gonna give 99-year leases. I mean, most of these parking agreements, nobody wants to give that.
I don't want to set up a set of
But
circumstances.
I do think the idea of coterminous, that the lease has to run if you wanna use the
Yeah,
parking.
coterminous, that's
And
even
if-
better if you ask me.
Yeah, so I mean, if language like that added to it is perfectly fine,
Yeah.
and that's not unusual. That's what most towns that allow parking off-site require something on the land records, and if that lease for some reason is terminated, that would be a violation of the underlying approval. You'd have to either get the lease back into good stead, or you'd have to find or build parking somewhere else.
Okay. The other question I had, thank you, and that addresses my concern. I'd like to see that language added. Under lighting and utilities, a lot of times, there's disagreement as to whether stormwater management is a utility. To me, it is, but I'd like it stated in here, lighting, utilities, and stormwater management.
I have stormwater as a separate section already in subsection C,
Okay, let me see, I missed that.
Yeah, it does, yeah, subsection C above there.
and it was your direction, Mr. Chairman, that
Okay, you did include it, perfect.
You asked me, you said, that's great, Bill, but what about utilities
That's
and
fine.
lighting? Could
I'm
you
fine
add a
with that.
section similar to that?
I'm fine with that, that's fine. Perfect.
I think it's really important because I've been involved in a lot of master planning, and the biggest thing people miss often is the stormwater design.
Yeah.
And so you don't plan for it, and you have this beautiful design, and then you actually have to engineer it, like, well, where are we gonna put the stormwater now?
And then you get into some really expensive subsurface leaching systems that make a
That
project
may or may not
unpractical.
work,
Yeah.
depending on the site.
Right, okay, that is my question. Anyone else have any questions to the applicant?
Go ahead. I don't know if it's a question, but just my comments, since I wasn't here last time.
Sure.
My biggest concern, I have two concerns. I'm not a fan of floating zones at all, so I'm just gonna say that right there. The M1 zone. We've talked in the zoning rewrite and a lot about manufacturing zones and putting the aquarium in that M1 zone. I can't go with that.
Aquarium's not in the M1 zone.
Well, this overlay zone, I'm sorry, does include the M1 zone.
Right.
And we don't have a lot of commercial property, and taking potential manufacturing lots and zoning out of that realm is my concern with this. That's just my opinion. So it's not a question to you, it's just how I feel.
The only thing I would react to it is that if you look at your zoning map, the only abutting property. You have to be abutting the aquarium to be part of this zone, so you can't like have an aquarium zone over in Pawcatuck.
I know, but there is that M1 zone off of at the end of Maritime
The only,
Drive.
the only zoning that's over there is TC80 and M1.
And M1, and so what I'm saying is I'm not comfortable with allowing this overlay zone in that M1 area.
Right.
That's.
Understood.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I do. I have a couple of things. So, again, talking about the M1 zone, the current height in an M1 zone is, do you know off the top of your
Yeah,
head?
I do. Bear with me for a second.
Maximum height is 50.
That's correct. It's 50.
50 with a special use permit?
Just 50. TC80 is 50, but it has that up zone to the increase to 65, which we've removed now.
Okay.
So it's going to be 50, and there's no change effectively in height. It's 50 right now in the M1 and the TC80. The only thing is we won't be able to take advantage of the increase in height in the TC80 under this floating zone.
Okay. And then, the other question I had, so I had several comments, as you know, and you
Yeah.
definitely answered a lot of them. So, this is my, thought process here. In the beginning, when we talk about this being a maritime education, but there's a big out here saying that there could be other activities. And you're right, I said tourism activities. What are tourism activities?
Sure.
So instead of defining that, now it just says, and other activities. Well, that to me leaves the gates wide open, which I don't think, that wasn't the purpose of my comment, that wasn't the thought behind my comment. The thought behind my comment was ensuring that this zone is going to be used for the stated reason, right? Maritime, education, etc. So I just, these other activities not being well thought through and defined and clear leaves this open gate that I can't live with. Because things change.
So,
Economy changed, all of a sudden you
Sure.
need a restaurant, all of a sudden you need, and another one was the event center, which I wanted that to be listed as a prohibited use.
Sure.
I don't want this to turn into a wedding venue or an event center because there's a monetary need to all of a sudden start making a lot more money, and so we're gonna start using these facilities for that reason. So I think we've got to narrow the scope of what is allowed. We have to be smart and not just put blinders on that this is it for today, but 20 years from now, we've left it open for all these other things. It's a floating zone with a specific use. That's what they're asking for, and that's what this document should state. That's how I feel about this.
so if I could respond to that. So if you read the permitted and prohibited uses, we have a list of primary uses and we have a list of accessory uses. But it does say such uses may include but are not limited to. That's a common language that you find throughout a lot of your floating zones. Here's the rub. To get a master plan approved, to actually rezone the aquarium and maybe adjacent properties to MRED, I have to come before you with a zone change and a master plan. I have to show you what that is. I have to have the conceptual stormwater, the public utilities. I've got to show the landscaping. I also have to provide you my list of primary uses and accessory uses for the master plan. And then you, sitting in your legislative capacity, broad and sweeping discretion, say, Bill, that sounds like a great use. That's a use that wasn't listed, but that really fits. Or you say, Bill, you're off in left field on this one. That doesn't meet and help the actual mission of the operation. That's not what we intended. And you have that discretion because the next step is still legislative to approve, deny, or modify the master plan. So I don't know what the use would be, but but that gives you the authority to be able to shape it, but it also gives us the flexibility to say, hey, there is a new use that we've come up with that we didn't think about in the spring of 2025, and it's a perfect fit. And it gives us the ability at least to make a pitch to you to do that. Now, on the issue of events, the aquarium has done private events for years, and they've been doing that for literally 4 decades. They do it all the time. It's a very, very small part of their operations. They do it after hours. You can go and have a private dinner there. But in no way, under no circumstances, are we trying to create a competitor to Saltwater Farm or Clay Burkhalter's, the Hound or whatever. We're not in the wedding business. But do we have receptions there occasionally? Do we have a private dinner? I know I've been to a private dinner there, sitting in the aquarium after hours for a charity event. They do that as a very, very minor accessory facility. And if we come forward to the master plan, we would flesh that out and tell you exactly what that is and how big it is, where it would be. We'd give you all those details. So I did see your comment. I didn't want to say no events. What I want to say is I want to be able to present to you a plan in the master plan phase for you to go yay or nay.
So, we've gone through this floating zone master plan process a number of times, and I think the commission is learning as they go, right? We no longer have to go through, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3. I think future commissions, maybe they will have to do that, but I think what we have done in the past for floating zones, we could certainly improve upon based on some of the things we approved in the past unknowingly. We just didn't have the experience as a commission. Commissioners change. We have a very experienced commission now. I think it would be better for the community to focus in on what they want now for their activities and then come back and ask for addition later on, like a fresh slate, a text change to the floating zone or something like that, rather than just open the gates now. I feel like it's very easy for somebody to come in and say, you've got the word other here, and so that, there's nothing saying, you can't do this specifically. That means we can do it, and so the answer is yes.
I would disagree with that statement. By having that statement in the nature of how it's structured, it would give you no legal right to do any use, quite frankly, because any use is still governed by the master plan, which you will have legislative discretion to approve or deny or modify at a later date. If there was a master plan put in front of you, and I said, well, one of the uses we want is we want to be able to make widgets on the property, and you might say that doesn't have anything to do with marine science, but the majority of the board said yes, and it becomes part of the master plan, then yes. Then I could come in with my site plan and go, I have a widget factory here. I have a right to build it. So that's where I would get the vested right to be able to do it. But the way I've set it up, and I think I said this yesterday, and with due respect to Ms. Morrison, I think floating zones are great tools because they allow people to be creative, but you keep all the discretion with the commission. So it just gives us a chance to sell you a vision for something. And you can say yay or nay, or you can say I like this, but I don't like that. And we can together work out, it's the closest thing you can get to contract zoning in Connecticut, where we can work out a plan that benefits everyone. And we're not hamstrung by the 1950s Euclidean zoning that says you'll do this and you'll do that and you have to meet this requirement and this requirement. And if you don't like it, you have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I understand that some people like that format. I just don't think that necessarily creates good development. But I appreciate your comments anyway, Ms. Connor.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I have a question. This zone was created as TC 80, and it seems like for the setbacks, you went through and cut them all by a half or took a third off. And I guess I'm trying to figure out why you need that. And the one that I was a little concerned about is 15 feet from the highway on the rear.
That's a great question. I can talk about that.
I drove up the road, I couldn't see.
And I apologize because I intended to address that because I know you made a comment like that in your individual comments. So one of the things we did is we went out and we actually looked exactly where that line was after the last meeting. One of the things that's misleading is when you drive on I-95 and you look to the right, you see all this land, and you think, well, if it's 15 feet, they're gonna be able to build up to the highway. The reality is there's a very wide state right-of-way associated there. And so we already have buildings, we already have improvements within 10 feet of that rear property line today. So a 15-foot rear yard to the actual property line still is literally 50, 60, 70 feet from the highway itself because of that extra large right-of-way. Setbacks are measured from property line and not. So what we did though is, in the event that there was a property that isn't the aquarium property and isn't on I-95, we still have a 30-foot rear yard setback because that's a reasonable rear yard setback. It's just along I-95, that huge right-of-way. It makes it look like there's all this room between the highway and the aquarium. That's state land. The aquarium is literally built right up to its property line right now.
Until the highway expands. I'm not sure it can because there's a big slope
Yeah,
there, but,
not likely to expand. If
yeah.
it does expand, there's room in the right-of-way right now for that. The right-of-way is wide enough to allow for at least another lane right now. There'll be some grading issues, of course, with that, but there's a sizable right-of-way. And I actually, Mr. Terenzi and I looked at that after the meeting just to truth that number.
I don't know what you guys think about that. That was my only comment. Yeah,
That answer your question, Dave?
it does, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Clifton, any comments?
I had no, I tried to facilitate all of the comments from the last time and then the ones I've received individually. And I sat down with Attorney Sweeney a couple times to talk him through and put this forward. I don't have any comments or concerns with this. I mean, the only thing I'll make two comments. One is I'll echo the utility of floating zones as an alternative to Euclidean zoning. It's definitely it's a proven better method than Euclidean zoning in terms of planning and design. It's recognized as a best practice by the American Planning Association. So I would speak highly in favor of any sort of floating zones. The second thing I'd say is Attorney Sweeney mentioned the events that have historically gone on at the aquarium. So I think I have a responsibility to say the town of Stonington has held events at Mystic Aquarium multiple times, and so we've used funding from the town to host our annual events around the holiday season, in which commissioners are all invited to, and that has been held at the Mystic Aquarium. So just for the record, I'll put that out there.
Always as accessory and subordinate, though,
Correct.
to the principal use, and that's very important to the aquarium. They have a responsibility as a charitable organization or a nonprofit organization to meet that requirement.
Is there any kind of definition for accessory or subordinate use that could be put in here?
You have it in your regulations already.
So we do have that, okay.
Yeah. And it's really about the tail wagging the dog,
Right.
fundamentally. And I thought that was a creative way to address, because I thought your concern was a valid one, and I wanted to do it in a way that was responsive, but still allowed us, because I don't know what the master plan is going to look like yet. So I wanted to have enough flexibility, but still address the concern of, all of a sudden there's a McDonald's standing there.
The way that I would interpret the language as it's moved into an accessory use is kind of the cafeteria facility within the aquarium, as opposed to a restaurant
Separate.
on a separate site, dedicated and basically set alone. So that's the way I would interpret moving that language around.
Okay, all right, so that's clear
Correct.
going forward, okay.
If there are no other questions or comments, can we move to public input?
Thank you.
I don't think anybody.
Got the sign-up sheets?
I signed up
Oh, okay. Carmen signed it.
from last time, but I wanted to look at it.
It's just you, Carmen.
Yeah. For the record, my name is Carlene Donnarummo, and I'm going to refer to this red-lined version that Mr. Attorney Sweeney was talking about.
I have to apologize because when I asked my computer to print this thing, it left out all the red print. And I thought all the red print was to eliminate things. But tonight, when we get to page 3, I'm not sure exactly what it is now, because it sounds like these are additions, so I just want to be sure of what's where. So when you get to page 3, starting with parking, the part where he's talking about it's under control of ownership, is that going to be added?
Yes. Yes.
That's going to be added, okay. And the lighting and the utilities is going to be added? Okay, and the retail and the, so mostly on that, and the ground mounted, it's added? Okay, so, okay, my computer did me a disservice. Other than that, but hotels has been added too, I remember that. So that's good. I think this is a much improved document than the first time around. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Carleen. Anyone else wish to speak either for or against? Do we have a sign-up sheet? Was there only one person?
It was just Carleen.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak either for or against? Make a general comment on this application? Ask one more time. Anyone wish to speak for or against? Make a general comment? Hearing none, if the commission has no other questions of Clifton,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close this public hearing.
motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary and Ryan. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to close?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Chair abstains. What's the commission's pleasure on this application?
Mr. Chairman, one clarification with Clifton. I do know you had asked to have added the lease to run coterminous with the use. Where would that be inserted?
In the parking section.
Parking section.
So I can work with the applicant to clarify that.
Clarify that, okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to, and can I combine the Planning Conservation Development and Zoning Regulation Amendment?
Yep.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve this application and that it is consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development, and also to approve the Zoning Regulation Amendment that has been submitted.
With the one amendment?
With the one amendment for the lease to run coterminous
With the use.
Yep.
Okay, a motion to approve with one stipulation that has been put into the record by Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Any discussion on the motion? Just to add one point, I think you raised some very valid points here, but I think that through effective discussion back and forth, we see that the time for those discussions is at the master plan phase, and I agree with you that we've got to do a better job on the master plan.
A much better job, yeah. I want to just say that I really appreciate that Clifton took the time to sit down and collate the comments, and the applicant took the time to take them into account. That was really helpful.
Very helpful.
Very effective collaboration between the staff, Clifton, and the attorney. I think you did a very good job in addressing the commission's concerns. Having said that, is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
One opposed. The chair abstains. The motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful evening.
Lynn, we have one final read for a public hearing, and just for clarification, because there was some question, the regular members are seated for this public hearing.
So this is a continuation of public hearing PZ 2513RA, Stone Ridge Senior Care LLC, from the April 15th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to reopen.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to reopen this public hearing.
Motion to reopen. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary. Thank you. All in favor? I'm sorry, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The hearing is open. Evening, Counselor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is John Casey. I am a partner with the law firm of Robinson & Cole, representing the applicant tonight. If you probably all recall, when we continued this hearing a few weeks ago, it was rather late in the evening after a very long session. Unlike the hearing you just continued with, where it seemed there was a lot of comments and questions and things to work out, I think we sort of left it that where we stood on our proposed application was pretty straightforward. I know the commission had some comments, but not a lot. My sense was that it was late in the evening and you wanted some time to to consider them. Since then, to make it clear, we did provide, and it's attached to Clifton's report, sort of a consolidation of what our preferred is, because if you recall, the original application had sort of options for you to consider. So that's at the back of Clifton's report. But now I have to say, I did make an error, and I should have struck some language there to comply. I think it's appropriate, and I know Clifton's going to talk about his proposals as well. But I think for us as well, in section 357D on the development requirements, it's at the bottom of page 2 of 2 of the very last thing of Clifton's report, 2 of 2 of our document. The last two sentences should have been struck to comply with state law about the size of yeah. And I know this relates somewhat to, it's sort of like the backdoor FAR as well, and we should have taken it out. So that's the only change from what we proposed. Going quickly through again, and I'm happy to take any questions. We are asking to allow the height on on slope lots for the height to go up to 60 feet and 4 stories where the 4 stories are above the parking level. A little preview, moving parking under buildings is a better way to handle it. There's less impervious surface. I think that's something you might see if this is passed, but that's on slope lots. And then we also asked in that section, to increase the floor area ratio to 0.45 on lots exceeding 30 acres. And we had a graphic for you showing, here it is, that there's only a couple of those. Actually, I think there's only one 30-acre lot in town, and very few 15-acre lots under the current regulation that could benefit from any of these. And then our other changes are in the buffer zone. We know you have recommendations, I think that Clifton will speak of, but we're just going with what we proposed: 35-foot wide buffer on all lot lines, 30-foot screening at side and rear lot lines, and 50-foot screening at front lot lines. And then on the development requirements, we just propose changing it to allow 380 independent or assisted living units and no more than 60 convalescent beds in subsection D. So that's our proposal. Again, a map amendment. You're sitting in your legislative capacity. We've just done it. I don't think I need to lecture you about that. But that's where we are. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions of the applicant? Hearing none. Clifton?
The only thing, I obviously put together stuff too. The only thing the commission mentioned at the last meeting was they wanted the applicant to take the commission's comments on their preferred preferences, come up with a singular document. I think what Attorney Casey's presented and what was attached, that 2-page document surmises that perfectly. There was just the one edit on the last page he's already mentioned. So should the commission move forward, I think they could approve that document as submitted with no significant changes apart from the one strike through. I, on the other hand, decided to take a different approach because I'm going to stick to my guns. And when we've been doing a zoning rewrite for 3 years now, if we make a recommendation and a similar application comes before us, we should consider merging the two into one approval. So that way, if we go to a public hearing on the zoning rewrite, we can already strike a potential recommendation out because we have tacked it earlier. We've done that a couple times already. You can remember cannabis regulations being one of them. We took that out of sequence of what would have been the normal procedure with the zoning rewrite. We approved it early as an application, so I thought, why not move forward with recommendation 25 as it was presented by FHI, tentatively forwarded or advanced by the commission. You didn't vote on it, obviously, and then combine it with this applicant's. In my report, I created a separate memo on the proposed text amendment. In it, on the first page of that, you'll see 4 bullet points towards the end. I found 4 inconsistencies or redundancies in the existing text as of today that should be eliminated. Sections B and C, which are currently talking about the design of the facility, and B specifically, good thing I brought my book. B specifically, 537B talks about assisted living standards and what the standards of a congregate living facility shall include. That's regulated by DPS. So the commission can't regulate that in terms of an approval of an application. I also cited 537D 5 and 6, which are just 2 bullet points under development regulations, talking about the community areas and laundry facilities within a congregate living facility, also regulated by DPS, so it should be eliminated. The second bullet I put was a redundancy on the permit requirements. The permitting requirements are already established in 15.2, so it should be eliminated. Sections 3 and 4 under the development regulations, which firstly talks about the proportionality of the structure, which is already really regulated by the Architectural Design Review Board, or at least when an application is reviewed, it goes to that review board. So we should rely on their expertise. And then those requirements are also regulated by building code for section 4, which is talking about the lowest grade of a building facility. Building code's already going to cover that, and then the parking requirements are already covered in parking. So that, in concert with what the applicants submitted, I provided on pages 2 and 3 of that memo, basically a rewritten version of the full section of 537 to eliminate those elements, combine the elements from recommendation 25, and then some of the suggestions from the applicants. So that's what I've put before the commission.
Questions, Clifton?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between 45 feet and 4 stories where the bottom's a walkout and 60 feet and 4 stories where the bottom is a parking level? Like tell me what that means.
So the intent of this is really site specific. If the bottom story is a walkout, that means the building is built into a slope.
So parking is...
So if parking's below, you can take the walkout portion that could have been used for, say, living quarters, and you're adding that instead to the top if you're replacing it.
But it's sort of the same thing you're saying. So I guess is walkout the same as a parking level?
No, a walkout is if that you're going to use that as like the living space.
Okay.
And so
this has to be parking.
Correct.
So you're saying you can't use it as a living space. It has to be parking.
If you're going to check off that 60-foot threshold.
Okay. All right.
But if it's not, and you're going to use that as livable quarters on that walkout level, it has to be 45 feet.
Okay. All right. That's
and 4 stories.
Yeah, I just didn't understand that difference.
But
Yeah.
that's for so along your same line, we now changed it. The proposal here is that it's on a 5-acre lot, you can have this kind of development. So there's a lot of 5-acre lots around. And in all, so that's kind of raising the height for a lot of potential building, development of this type
Correct.
to
You'll-
either 50 or 65.
Correct, and you'll recall when we discussed recommendation 25, which was between April and June of 2024, when we started talking about this item, so a little ways back.
Yeah.
But the conversation in that discussion was exactly what you said, Lynn, and you brought it up at that point too, is that FHI and the commission identified that a 15-acre lot requirement is really prohibitive to the development of a congregate living facility. And there were members of the public that spoke in favor of reducing that to create more congregate living facilities. And FHI came with the recommendation to the commission to do that, to reduce it from 15 to 5, solely so you can create more of those facilities. So that was the whole intent of the regulation, is to make the existing standards less restrictive, and that's why the commission forwarded this recommendation, and you took it and moved on,
Right.
was exactly to do that, so exactly what you're saying.
But
It's the height.
it's the height. It's not the fact that it's 5 acres versus 15 acres. This application is asking, because the current site, right, that I think everybody's talking about, right? It's,
The only thing that the applicant is proposing to change, the current regulations are 35 and 45 feet, where that bottom is a walkout level. So that 45 feet is already allowed, that the applicant is mentioning. That's why it's not strucken through or
anywhere
underlined.
that you can have a congregate living.
Correct, 45,
45 feet is
if it's a
allowed.
walkout, correct. So that's the current allowance. But the applicant's requesting that if done in conjunction with a 5-acre reduction, is that if you utilize that walkout level as parking in order to minimize the impervious area, you can take what you normally would have developed and add that as another story. So that's where the height increase comes in. But it's only if that is used for parking. So the current allowance, or the current height that you're mentioning, is already allowed. It's just that if you reduce the lot area, you might have a higher chance of developing these. But I think the applicant showed on the plans the first time, there's not really a lot of developable areas to put something like this at the 15-acre level. You'll have a little bit more opportunity at the 5-acre level, but it isn't like you're gonna pop up at 30 of these across town if you make that change. At least that's what FHI stated.
I think the limiting factor is public sewer and water.
Correct.
There's
That was
only,
highlighted up behind on the other plan back there. Those are the areas that could, by zoning, have this use, but half of those don't have water and sewer, too. And so all that shaded gray area, about half of that, even if it is 5 acres, doesn't have that access to water and sewer that's required for the use.
it's only Pawcatuck,
It's only
Mystic, and
Pawcatuck,
Central
Mystic, and, yeah,
Sewer,
Central.
and Stonington Borough.
I mean, it's the 60, so right now, you can have 4 stories, but the bottom story is the walkout part, so it's really 3 stories above the bottom level. What you're proposing now is 4 stories above the bottom level, so basically 5 stories.
If
If there's a garage underneath.
If you utilize it for parking.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but it's still, you're giving them another story, and it could be a dead flat lot.
We're
Right, I
not
mean,
really
it could be
getting
like-
another story, we're getting underground parking,
No, 'cause
basically.
it says you are getting another story, because right now it's 4 stories including the walkout. The proposed is 4 stories excluding, so your bottom level doesn't count to 4 stories.
Yeah, that's what.
Right, so you could have a dead flat lot, underground, like a parking garage underneath, and then 4 stories above that. And that's what I'm saying, so it doesn't the parking doesn't count as a story.
Correct.
But in the old regulations, the underneath did.
Right,
And
you're
so that's what I'm a
getting the
little
same- So you're taking parking from out on the parking field and you're putting it underneath, yeah.
I'm talking it through with them too, so, yeah.
But you're giving you another story of building, so you're going
Let's
up
not
and-
forget the benefit of less coverage.
No, I understand all that.
No, I know you do, but I just want to state it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would
I'm all
say
for
it's not
parking
the
under the
benefit,
building.
you're not getting a benefit of another story. We're taking parking out off the field and putting it under the building.
Right. Reducing coverage.
Reducing coverage.
But it's a much smaller lot, so,
With going down to 5.
But that's just another aspect of it, you know, like you say, there is additional height. One of the offsetting positives is reduced coverage.
right.
It's like a incentive-based trade-off.
John,
Just for the record,
put it,
yeah.
Mike Segan, Victor and Segan, landscape architect. I think this illustrates it, it's really simple, the concept. Here's an existing building with 4 stories, right, on the downhill, 3 on the uphill. We've just taken that and lifted it up with a parking garage underneath, so we're not adding any more living stories. Again, it's at,
The way the regulations and the way that it's applied is that it becomes a limiting factor if you are on a sloped lot, how you measure height of a
Yes.
structure. And so if you have a sloped lot, you're immediately at a disadvantage for the development of this use. This is eliminating that disadvantage by compensating it elsewhere. And so exactly as Mr. Segan stated, it's just replicating what's already allowed, but for the constraints of a site, and then adding a limitation saying it has to be parking. Because as Commissioner Morrison mentioned, if it's a dead flat lot, none of this really matters in that case. Because the height, or the sloped lot is the limiting factor. If it's flat, then it's not an issue.
It's 45, if it's flat, the maximum they can go without any change that we're talking about today is what?
It says 35 feet with a maximum of 3 floors, except on sloped lots where one side may be 45 and 4 if it's a walkout. Or if you take that walkout and place it with parking, then you can go up to 60. So on a flat lot, if it's perfectly flat, then it's 35 feet with a maximum of 3 floors on a flat lot. So the only time you're adding height is now if the slot becomes sloped, because you're compensating for how height's measured.
Okay, so that's, okay, so that, I understand what you're saying now, but can you make it clear? So to me, when I read this, the 60 feet was separate. So that's what I'm saying. So you're saying the 60 feet is still only on the slope lot. So can you, like,
I think it's because of the comma.
it's the commas.
Because the comma makes it seem like it's the third part rather than.
Yes,
Except on the
thank you.
slope lot or the 60 feet.
That
if
should,
makes
like,
sense.
you said,
Yeah, it's a
it's the
list.
punctuation. Can we like tighten
Just
that?
eliminate a comma,
Yeah.
Or
Because-
like reword, say like on slope, or actually say
I
do a
mean-
period after the 35, after the 3 floors, then put period. And then start a whole separate,
You
on
could-
Except
slope
on slope
lots.
lots.
Yes, correct.
You could do
it
these
be
other
It could be a
things.
That is
0.1
clear.
versus a 0.2.
Yes, can we
Yes.
do that and make that a little bit clearer?
Yeah.
Because I was, that, okay, so I understand now. 'cause
But
I was-
but exactly how you're interpreting it is how I would interpret it, which is how it would apply. So it has to be on a slope lot to utilize that 60 feet.
Okay, but that's not how when I first started, that's not how I interpreted it. So that's why I was concerned. 'Cause the way when I first
Okay,
read it, I interpreted it to be, you could have a dead flat lot, parking underneath, and then
No.
going up 60. Because the commas and the punctuation is not in the right
That
place.
punctuation change would make it very clear. 35
Yes.
feet with maximum 3 floors, period, end of
I
sentence.
That's a good
even
modification.
think your second recommendation of
Separating them separate, yes, separating them separate, yes. First 35 feet,
35 feet
And then
base-
bullet, and
on a
then
base flat lot, but if
on
you're
a
on a
slope
slope
lot.
lot here, you're 2
okay,
options.
thank you. Okay, that makes
Any
sense.
other questions to the applicant?
Punctuation.
Does anyone else in the audience wish opportunity to speak?
Carlene signed up.
I'm sorry?
Carlene signed up.
Is it still open? Can I just make a comment? Like, should we define slope? Like,
We already have
is it
slope.
2%, 1%, like, there's a definition for what a slope lot is? I mean, is it 2% slope?
It-
Like,
It's not on it's the location of the structure, so when we're talking about height, we're measuring from the points of the structure, and so in the case of the slope lot, to really simplify it, if it's a rectangular building, you measure each of the four corners, and then that average to the average of the peak, the mid-range of the peak is your height.
Oh, it's the average, it's not from the lowest point?
No, it's the average of the four
It's the
corners.
average, it's how we measure,
So the mid-
it's
the
how we measure
midpoint of
height
the
for
roof?
everything.
okay.
Is it
Yeah,
the-
but now you're asking for, see, I was thinking that, and I understand that may be how we do everything, but to me, your lowest point to your, to your highest point, no average, shouldn't be more, shouldn't be more than 60 feet.
Is it to the midpoint of the roof?
Yeah, it's the midpoint of the roof, that's how you measure height on everything. That's how height is always measured everywhere.
It is.
So to change that would fundamentally change all of our zoning. And it would change all of our, well, it would change all of our building code, I mean, it would change everything to change how we measure height.
Can we move to public input?
Sure.
Carleen?
Again, for the record, my name is Carleen Donarumo. I'm getting really confused because I think this whole thing got confused with trying to put the recommended amendment from FHI into the mix. It sounds like you might be leaning towards favoring the applicant's application rather than Clifton's. And I spent most of my time on Clifton's, thinking that that's the step you were going to take. But anyway, I have some general comments. We talk about redundancy, and I do not agree that redundancy is a bad thing. Sometimes I think it's really a good thing. And in lots of cases, in our regulations, it's going to avoid flipping around the regulations to get where you want to get and get all the right information that you need. The other thing, reading these things, somewhere I read that we were supposed to get, or the goal was to put the convalescent home on the same footing as a congregate living. And they're two different animals completely. So I think if you go in that direction, that's not the right way to go. And the more I think about these regulations, especially the congregate living regulations, I question why we are even allowing them in the CS5 or the LS5 zone. When you go back and you look on the chart, I think you're going to be very hard pressed even to find a 5-acre lot, let alone a 15-acre lot. So I think this is going to really need some more application. And I'm going to take a picture of that photo that you have, the next one, because I think a lot more analysis has to go into this about what lots would really qualify for this. First of all, we know that they has to have water and sewer. Are the yellow the CS5s?
It's all under the shading, so it's like an orange hatching, the CS5. You can barely see it because it's so small.
Yeah, well, all right. But anyway, I'm just really confused about this. I hope you have a better understanding than I have about this. I don't know if you want me to talk about Clifton's thing or not. I do not agree with the 5 acres. I think it should be more. The setbacks, I think, should be more. And we talk about buffers and screening and setbacks. I thought throughout the whole rewrite process that you have a yard, and the buffer goes in the yard, and the screening goes in the buffer. And that's my understanding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but somehow I don't think that's always understood around here. So I'll just, on your thing, Clifton, when you get to 5, C5, where it says medical and/or nursing facilities, clinics for occupant and resident use only. If you do adopt that,
That's already in the regs.
well, Stone Ridge takes people in their medical facilities that are not residents, so I think we have to think about that. They would be out of compliance if that's so. And, all right, if you listen to the radio, 95.9 that I do, their marketing director is already on the radio promoting this. It's unapproved, unbuilt, but they're already taking reservations for people in these units.
Technically, the wing, and
I'm
they
sorry?
mentioned, technically the wing, and they mentioned this in their first application, this is already approved. Not the height or the structure or the text change, but there is a wing present that is approved for that location. Approved part of the original Stone Ridge. So whether or not that this language change went through, that applicant could go and build that under an already approved application, just as it was originally designed.
Because they never built out.
Because they never finished that phase of the development.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this application, either for or against, or a general statement? The applicant wish any rebuttal? Yes, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ralph Wood. I am a resident of Stone Ridge, and I'm the chairman of the Residents' Council.
Evening, Ralph.
Thank you. The council would like to support the proposed, and it's part of an expansion deal. It's not only a new building, it's other changes to the inside, that new kitchen and so forth that have been needed. We're lacking some details at this point to be able to support this wholeheartedly. So we're waiting for to see a few more details. I would point out that the height of the building is adding 4 stories on top of the parking garage. That the ground floor for the parking garage would be what we call level 2, and the adjacent 2 buildings to this are buildings 5 and 6, and they go up to level 4. So if you add 4 stories on top of level 2, you've created a level 6 versus a level 4. And it's not quite a 2-story advantage, but it's getting close. And the thing we want to see are the architect's drawings and how things are positioned so that the people who live on the upper floors of these shorter buildings don't have their, let's just call it the sunshine, occluded from them. That I think can all be worked out. The higher the building, I'll just remind you, the higher the floor area ratio and the more parking you need. And the building is actually in a place where we've already had tight parking. So all that has to be worked out, and we're here to, the council would like to help with that, and we will. We have good partners here. I would say that if you approve the text changes as proposed, that's fine. That says we can do something. Whether we should do it will be, I think, reserved for the future at this point.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to speak on this application? Do you wish rebuttal? Counselor?
For the record, John Casey again, not rebuttal, but just a brief summation, Mr. Chair. I think I mentioned this last time we were here. and it's in Clifton's report. We believe this amendment, whether it's ours or Clifton's, is consistent with the comprehensive plan, the plan of conservation and development, and the general purposes of your zoning regulations. As we were discussing, it would only apply to those zoning districts where the congregate living facilities are permitted, so it's not a town-wide amendment. And again, the number of eligible properties is small, and if they're increased by going to 5 acres, it seems to be consistent with a determination by the commission and your consultants that more housing opportunities are a good thing. And that would be consistent with your plan of conservation and development's intention of diversifying the town's housing portfolio and available housing, especially for an aging population, which is exactly what this will do. We will, if it's passed, we will be back with all those details that were questioned. We know that this project is thought of as being one of great architectural design, and you can expect that any new parts of it will comply and carry on that architectural excellence as we go forward. And for that reason, we would ask that you approve the text amendment in one form or another. We have no objection to the changes as proposed by your planner. But as I said before, we came in with text amendments that we thought were appropriate for our development and in keeping with an applicant's role in proposing text amendments. You just apply for what you need. But we totally understand what Clifton's doing here. And we think this is a good thing either way for the town to allow this particular development to expand, but also to allow other opportunities going forward. So that's all. Thank you.
There is no further public comment.
It's not a comment or a rebuttal. I want to clarify something. I know we've been calling this Clifton's amendment because I wrote it. I want to remind everyone that this is the town of Stonington's amendment, and I'm just a facilitator of doing that. So the responsibility of assessing the risks, positive or negative, associated with the text amendment are my responsibility. It's in my job description. I will say that this isn't Clifton's amendment. This is the town of Stonington's recommended amendment, and I would hope that you would take that more seriously than if it was just mine.
Thank you. So if there's no more comments or questions from the commission, no more public comment, should we entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to close this public hearing.
Motion to close, is there a second?
Second the motion.
Seconded by Gary, thank you both. Any discussion?
We have time. Without extension, we have until next meeting. And there's been a lot of discussion about height, there's confusion. I think there's been some suggestions on how to write the text out so there's clarity there. I'd like to suggest to the board that we postpone voting on this until the next meeting where I can see.
Should we leave the public hearing open?
We already closed it.
Yeah, we already closed it though.
Okay, so we voted on it, yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
just want just exactly what would look like.
So this is wordsmithing anyway, it's
Yeah,
not,
that's
it's
what I
not
think.
really something that's subject to debate.
Yeah.
Yeah, just wanna,
Is there
there are
any
a couple
concerns
things
on
that
that?
I think.
Since you're in your legislative capacity, as long as you don't branch out and start talking about other text changes not associated with this, you can
Yeah, I think
operate
it's very
very
limited
specific changes.
to reviewing, because then the applicant doesn't have a chance to
Opportunity.
rebut either, any discussion that we have at the next meeting. I think it's almost cleaner if we were to add conditions that would address, any concerns that you have, since we closed the public hearing.
It might be cleaner, but I think it'd be nice to see it in writing. Again, all of the discussion, or the presentation is really around Stone Ridge, one site. And I understand, that site, it makes completely sense, but we're not just talking about Stone Ridge, we're talking about a full text amendment. And I just think that we need to consider that a little bit more and make sure that we have all the clarity. So I would suggest that we wait to vote and have more of our discussion at the next meeting. We have time, there's no reason to rush.
Well, again, I think if your discussion is in regular session and it brings up, as Clifton said, other areas that the applicant doesn't have a chance to rebut, you're getting into
You are in
trouble.
your authority to do that.
Yeah,
Because it's a text amendment.
okay.
You are in your authority to do that.
All right, so if there's no
If
problem,
it
if there's
was
no
a special
problem,
use
or
plan,
slippery
site
slopes.
plan application, you couldn't do that.
Okay.
But since you're acting in your authoritative or your legislative capacity, you can do exactly that.
Okay.
And say
Then
that
I think it's a good idea
you
to,
can close the public hearing now.
it's closed.
You can direct changes to be made or put it in a format that's even better to process. And then you can, discuss those. And the only person you're working with now, though, is me,
That's what I was.
as opposed to
Right.
the applicant. And so if you give direction on what you want to see based off either what the applicant has submitted and you want to see that in a format, or if you want to see a different format of what I've presented, you just have to direct me and then I present that to you at the next meeting.
Got it. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so do we need a motion for that, to do that, or since we've...
I-
How does that direction get
I would
conveyed?
need that direction now, so you close the public hearing, you can postpone decision, you don't have to vote that you're gonna postpone a decision. But for the record, it is good to give me direction on what you want to see changed or worked around.
So what, did you have
So
specific
what is it
items?
specifically?
I want to look at this very thoroughly.
Yeah, but I mean, what
One of
aspects
the-
do you
okay,
wanna
I wanna
see clarified?
Okay, I would like to clarify the height a little bit differently with some bullet points, some headers and some bullet points. And
Along the
we can
lines
review this.
of what was discussed,
Along the lines
Mr. Morrison and,
discussed, for example, 35 feet with maximum 3 floor, new header, except on slope lots, and then there's 2 sub-bullets underneath. I think, I want to think about the buffer a little bit, and I'm wondering if we could put in, and I'm just thinking out loud now, because, we just got this 2 different ways of looking at it. I wonder if we can put in 2 different lot requirements based on the type of,
Probably be a fundamental change, wouldn't it?
yeah.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, so maybe, congregate living of, one nature is on a 5-acre lot, and of another nature has a different height and lot size requirement. So we could maybe cottage living as an example, which is a type of congregate living, okay? But it's a whole different way of doing it, and it would be more comprehensive, and I just,
Yeah, Lynn, I think what you're describing in that case kind of does venture on the beyond of substantial changes. Because what you're describing, the way that we have our uses set up is that they are, site plan applications or special use permits. And it is that based off the zone. The way that we've broken it up for other things, say a mixed-use residential, there's a unit requirement, so if it's above 10 units, it's a special use permit, if it's under, it's a site plan application. What you're describing in that vein is creating a completely new classification of congregate living facility for the shorter. I don't think that's something that we can do in this format, for this application. So what I would suggest, if you're trying to think of doing a congregate living facility light, that would be something that I would have to bring back to you, or FHI would have to bring back to you in a completely different format. And so my suggestion for you is if you want to see something like that, then I would keep the acreage requirement as it is, which is 15. And we could do a 5 acre one later, but not part of this application.
Okay.
So-
Thank you for that clarity.
So if they clean up the language on height and levels and eliminate the ambiguity, that deals with your fundamental concern?
Yeah, well, I think then we can have a
I think everybody has that
discussion.
concern, by the way.
Yeah, so I think it would be
Yeah.
good for the discussion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that enough clarity for you to,
Does that make sense? Pretty
So
much.
I've already incorporated the 2 comments. My question for the commission is, do you want the applicant's proposals for the height incorporated into what I've put before the commission with the other changes? Or do you want just the applicant's changes?
I would want the
separately?
combination, I would want yours.
yours?
With
It's
the
my
proposal for
A
heights, yeah.
combination.
Correct,
So
yeah.
the only things so if you looked at mine, the bulk requirements section, the 2 things that would be under discussion, firstly is the height. It would just to be, change that to incorporate Elise's comments, and break that out separately for the multi-tiered. And then it's, the only other change really then is the buffer elements. And the decision would be, do you want it as the applicant proposed, or do you want it how I proposed?
I like your line.
I'd agree with your language.
And then the last thing, and this I think is just going to be the discussion at the end of the day, is whether you want 5 or 15, but at that point, just as long as I have this in a certain, more revised format, I think we can haggle on all those things at the next meeting, because then you can just change all those numbers around as you see fit.
Okay.
But just as long as I have the direction on how to structure it, then that's gonna be easiest for me to give to you.
Okay. You okay with all that, Lynn?
Yep.
Okay. Then we'll move the decision to the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't think we have any other business on the agenda, so I think the appropriate motion is in order.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn this hearing.
No second is required, all in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is closed.